Please join me for Ask the Good Doctor, live today and every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Central Standard Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Bring your questions.
Hello, it's Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire, and it's Wellness Wednesday. Welcome to Ask the Good Doctor. We're here to help you attain, maintain, and reclaim your perfect health. So join me on Twitter at Ask the Good Doc, on Instagram and Facebook at Ask the Good Doctor. I'd love for you to jump in, grab your Good Doctor notebook. This is a good one. We're dealing with another issue of the human condition today. You're going to want to share this viable, life-saving information. Let's get right to it. It is a book that we are discussing with the author. I love him. He is Dr. Omekongo Dibinga. We just lovingly call him Dr. O. Yes. And he wrote this book. It slipped by me. I'm so grateful for Twitter. So Dr. O, hey, welcome.
How you doing? So great to see
well,
you.
Thank you. Good to see you. I want to thank Dr. O and his wife. They were early listeners and subscribers on Sirius XM back. And we've been in touch ever since. So I'm so happy to see this work. Lies about Black people, how to combat racist stereotypes and why it matters. That's a mouthful. First of all, tell us why you felt this book was necessary.
Well, again, thank you for having me. And Kendra sends hello and sends her love as well. And, I wrote this book because coming out of 2020, 2021 and murder George Floyd, we saw that the Black Lives Matter movement was really at a height in terms of its activity across the globe. And coming out of the pandemic, people started to get out more. As you're seeing in many of the articles nowadays, people are talking about diversity fatigue. But there were still a lot of people who wanted to kind of take their activism to the next level. And one of the ways they wanted to do that was to arm themselves with information about what it is. I went out there, I chanted Black Lives Matter. What else does that mean? How can I go deeper with it? And so I originally wrote this, LaJoyce, with white suburbanites in mind, but I started asking people about lies they were told about Black people. And we're talking about health and wellness. And I started getting more stories about lies about Black people from other Black people. And they were talking about the lies they were told and how it affected them spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, and how they're still doing the work to overcome the lies after seeing some of their family members succumb to the lies. And so this book, I wrote it for anybody who really wants to understand the core of the lies and stereotypes about Black people in this society, and then take it to a next level and actually do something about it.
Okay. So what are some of the lies that Black people have believed about Black people?
Well, let's start with one of them, that Black people can't swim. I have a whole chapter in there about that. And when you listen to the Olympian Brother Cullen, he talks about we were swimming on the continent but they removed that from us. They beat it out of us because they believed that they knew that we'd rather swim to our freedom and die than be enslaved. Yeah, so they took that away from us. But then going up in our communities, when you start looking at things in the 40s and 50s, when public pools started to come into place, white people would rather let their community pools close down than integrate them with Black people. Yeah. The decision to come down and integrate pools came down in 1956. That led to the growth of a whole bunch of country clubs and people paying to swim, and we didn't get access. So it's not that we couldn't swim, it's that we didn't have access to swimming. So we had to go into the streams and the lakes and all of that, which increased our rates of drowning.
Yes.
So that lack of access is what caused the problem. It's not an innate issue with Black people. So that was just one of the many stereotypes I cover in the book.
What? That's intense. You know what's interesting? I just had this conversation the other day because I have a finding, being from Chicago, living in New York, I have a finding that New Yorkers can't swim. And it's because they don't have pools in schools.
That's right.
Very few schools have a pool. And you know what else? They can't drive. But you know why? Not because people don't need a car, but they're not taught driver's ed.
That's right. That's right. And that's what it comes down to. It's like basic financial literacy. Remember, like a decade or two ago, a story came out that most college students don't know how to balance a checkbook. So it's that people have the skills, but they're not taught what to do.
Yes.
And so when you look at it, when you look at housing, people say, well, Black people can't get houses because they're bad with credit. No, the financial literacy isn't there. And then you couple that with the racism in the housing and banking industry, and you get the situation of Black people having less ownership now in homes than we did 50 years ago. It's a
Right.
combination of many things and is built on lies.
Yeah, and it's just like they say Black people don't play hockey. That's a lie. Me and my entire family were on a hockey team.
That's right.
Give us a hockey stick and see what happens to the
That's
industry.
right.
Okay. I've been
Absolutely.
skating since I was like 8.
But this goes to what Reverend Jesse Jackson said. You know, when the reason why Black people excel in sports, not because Black people are better at sports, but it's the closest thing to having a level playing field. When the rules are the same, when we have the same access that white people have, we excel. Period, bottom line. But when all these other things, all the jobs and places and schools, hidden rules, complexion of connection in terms of legacy admissions and all of the other type of stuff, that's when the challenges come into play.
Okay, you opened Pandora's box, complexion connections. All right, now, is that something that you speak of in the book?
Oh, most definitely. I have chapters on critical race theory, chapters on how white people became white. Oh, yeah. So if you want to hear some poetry, we can get into that. I have a whole chapter on the white privilege card. And I talk about how, you know, this idea of whiteness is social construct, just like Blackness is a social construct. And people who have fought in this country to get into that whiteness category, like Irish and Italians, how they weren't considered white at some point, but now they got into whiteness because people understand the benefits of this social construct, that they'll do anything to be a part of it. And we see it with other groups, Asians, people who are of Arab descent, try to get into this thing. Really, at the end of the day, that's also based on a lie of superiority. When you look at, I talk about this in the book, the concepts of race that we know today, they didn't exist before the 1450s, 1460s. They were used to justify slavery. That was that original lie. That's the big lie with the election. That's the real big lie, that Black people were born to be enslaved.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Oh, and wait, and we liked it.
Yes. Yes. We benefited from it. We enjoyed it.
Yeah, we learned soft skills.
Yes, yeah, that blacksmithing. Yeah, we weren't mastering metals in Africa for thousands of years.
Say, like we weren't taking care of ourselves at home.
Exactly. It's like we were brought here because we already had the skills. That's
you know,
we forgot.
And I hope that you dispel the whole myth of the light skin, dark skin thing too.
Oh, I go deep on racial vocabulary when we're using terms like, you know, what does it mean when we say fair skin? It means someone else's skin is unfair. Light skin, good hair, someone else's is not good. And it's not, and that's usually us. And so I have a chapter in there where I talk about, you know, our racialized vocabulary. Like, what is the language that we're using to refer to ourselves? Does it reflect empowerment? Like, I don't use people of color. I don't use minority, because these terms are disempowering. We have to use terms that build us spiritually in terms of, as opposed to always looking at us as less than.
Come on, say what give it to us, Doc. What should we be? How should we be classified?
Well,
what is our correct language?
Most definitely. So one of the things we have to understand, you know, we have to refer to ourselves as who we are, as Black people, as African Americans. If we're talking about Black people, you know, African Americans and West Indians and continental Africans, let's use the group. Let's use the term. When we use terms like people of color, when I talk about in the book, we're still centering white people. We're putting white at the center. And last time I checked, white is a color. It's in a box of crayons. I've seen it, right? So, you know, and so it minimizes us. When we say people of color, we're jumbling ourselves in with Asians and Latinos. And let me give you an example, 2 examples.
Please.
People were talking about COVID-related hate crimes as a people of color issue. It was not. It was an issue facing our Asian American AAPI brothers and sisters. So it diluted their real experience by jumbling them in with everybody else. When people talk about unarmed police shootings as a people of color issue, no, it's a Black issue. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen to other groups, because it does, just like some COVID-related hate crimes happen to other groups, but we're talking about proportionality. And so this is a Black experience. The police system was created after slavery ended as a system to continually keep us down. So don't dilute our experiences. Talk about the groups that you're referring to. Anti-immigrant related hate crimes, primarily a Latino community issue. Deal with those issues as they come. You know, as Karen Hunter talks about being part of a global majority.
That's right.
Use language that reflects the people you're talking about, as opposed to jumbling. And can I just talk about BIPOC?
Please do.
Because this is
wait. First of all, define it. Say what it is for the people who don't know.
Nuts. Black and Indigenous people of color. So organizations I've been working with for years have called me Black. One day I walk in and they start calling me BIPOC. I'm like, what is that? You know, no one asked me, right? So, and so when we talk, this is a term that became popular in social media, but now
Yes.
corporations are using it. But Black and Indigenous people of color, Black and Native American people don't have that much in common to be an entire group.
Yeah.
Both of us have been engaged in activism against, racism and the like. But you also had Native Americans who owned Black people. You also had the Buffalo Soldiers who slaughtered Native Americans. White people own Black people, so why not have a YPOC category, white and Indigenous people of color? We come up with all of these terms, but white people just get to be white and expand their whiteness. And so I have one of my poems in the book, I don't know if you want to hear it, but
Sure.
it talks exactly about our language that we use and why that's problematic.
Recite, my brother.
Oh, okay. Well, definitely. I appreciate that. So, we have to understand that really at the end of the day, if we don't make a concerted effort to change this, people are going to continue to define us as opposed to us defining ourselves. So, what makes me BIPOC? Is it my locks, the way I talk, the way I rock my socks? What makes you white? Is it because you're always right? Is it the privileges assigned as a birthright? What makes you Asian, bro? Is it your soul? What does a Korean have in common with a Pakistani, yo? And why did we thankfully stop using Oriental? What makes you Latino? Or is it Latinx? Who decided which term was the best? Are you Native American or are you Indian? Maybe it just depends on the city I'm in. Are you a Jew or are you Jewish? Is it about your collective history or because people assume you're all rich? I looked at my dark pants and I definitely don't look like that. So who decided with my brown skin that I'm Black? Seems pretty whack. When you call someone a term, is it because you mean it or is it because you don't want to offend and it's convenient? At the end of the day, the descriptors we use matter, and they're often based on racist stereotypes that we must shatter.
Take a bow. Fantastic. It is the truth. Thank you. I love your acronym LASD. Am I getting that correct? Listen.
LEAD.
LEAD. Lead.
That's right.
Tell us about lead.
Yeah, no doubt. So I in the book, I have interviews with people on the anti-racist journey, and the last 5 chapters are all about solutions. And one of them is about being a leader, LEAD, listen, educate, advocate, and decide. Because you got to understand that if you get out there and you don't really arm yourself with knowledge, you're just as much of a problem as the people we're fighting. So with the listen, you got to remember you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you have to use them in proportion. You got to commit to doing more listening than you do talking if you really want to be about this life and committed to the movement. There are stories you have to hear. Then after you listen, go out and educate yourself. That's what the E is for, because you have to know the history. You have to know the stories. You have to know the experiences. Otherwise, you're just going to regurgitate what your opponent is giving you, but you're not going to have any real facts. It's like with critical race theory. In my chapter on that, we are using our opponent's language, but we don't even understand that critical race theory is not even taught in K-12 schools. I know this because I've been reading CRT for the last 30 years. I know about it. But if we say we want critical race theory in the schools, it never was. Stop using their language to define what you're talking about. All right. So that's what educate yourself, but you have to educate yourself on that. Then you got to advocate, get out there and fight, go out to these parent-teacher committee meetings, take back the school board, take back the DEI in your schools, in your corporations, make sure that you're speaking up, advocating for people. And if you're in places where diverse groups are not represented, you got to fight to make sure that that representation comes to your places. And then decide. You just got to decide that this is how you're going to go down. For the rest of your life, you're going to be devoted to creating spaces where everybody can be celebrated and not tolerated. And if you don't just decide that every single day, then we've already lost.
I say it all the time. I want to be anywhere that I am welcome.
That's right.
Not where I am tolerated.
That's right.
I don't want to partake in any such thing. You also speak of the love that hate produced.
Yes.
What is that?
I start out the book with a poem which is entitled "The Love That Hate Produced." It's a little longer than the one I just shared, but basically what I do is, part of it says, this is a story about Africa and all of its children still loving themselves after centuries of systemic injustice. It's a story about tragic transatlantic treason and Berlin boundaries being drawn across ethnic lines with no rhyme or reason. And I'm basically going down the history of all of the things that have happened to us as Black people leading up to today, but that hate has produced love for our people, love for our community. And I end it with tributes to people like Serena Williams and Muhammad Ali and Lauryn Hill and other people continually fighting for love and assistance. You know, Doc Rivers, NBA coach, said that, you know, we keep loving this country, but it doesn't love us back.
That's
right. And so so I root this whole book in the spirit of love, in the spirit of our ancestors, people who fought for us to be where we are today. The Mamie tells, like, everybody, the Dr. Kings, everybody who fought for us to be where we are, produced that love that we have today for ourselves. And so I started out with there, and you know, it's a great poem that people enjoy in terms of it being a history lesson for us. And that's how I start out the book, with the love that hate produced.
I just love it. I love everything about it. And you are a professor.
That's right. I teach intercultural communication. I teach several courses at American University. I teach intercultural communication. I teach a class on Jay-Z. My doctorate is actually in Jay-Z. I teach a class.
Wait, they have a doctorate in Jay-Z?
Yes, indeed.
You wrote that.
I wrote a doctorate on Jay-Z. It's about 250 pages, and I claim it. It's online. You can read it. It's free. Absolutely. So I teach a class on Jay-Z. I teach a class on global hip hop and resistance, and I teach a class on cultural appropriation or appreciation.
I love that. Your students are much wiser and they have benefited from your knowledge, your vast knowledge. And I appreciate how you do not hesitate to place forth. One last question.
Sure.
Are we dreaming, Dr. O, or can we all get along in this nation?
We can all get along. I do believe that. We have to get past the lies that, you know, it was Lyndon B. Johnson that said, you know, and this is his language I'm using, you know, I learned at a young age. He said this while he was president. If you can convince the poorest white man that he's better than the best colored man, he won't realize you're picking his pocket. Give him someone to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you. People play off of the politics of division. You know, Fred Hampton, great Black Panther leader who was assassinated. One of the reasons he was assassinated on December 4th, 1969, same year Jay-Z was born, you can learn that in my class, I'm just saying, was because he was building a multicultural coalition. There's videos of him going out to like white farmers in the 60s, and they're on video saying, hey, we may not agree with everything, but you stand for us, so we're standing with you. That's how Reconstruction ended. Poor white people and formerly enslaved Black people building the South together. The white elite class didn't like that. That's where we got the system of Jim Crow. So yes, we all can get along, but we have to have the desire to want to do it. And once we get past the lies and realize we have more in common than we do that separate, that's how it happens.
It's very true. I appreciate you. This book, Chris put it up, Lies About Black People and Why It Matters. Dr. O. Dibinga, thank you so much for joining us. There'll be a link down below. Get this book. Share it with your children. Read that wonderful melodic poetry aloud. Let it seep into your heart and your soul. Thank you, Dr. O, for this work. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Take care.
Okay, we'll have you back just because this is ongoing. Okay. All right. Thank you. Talk soon. And that's all we have for you today. Thanks, my team. IW supervising producer, Chris Green, technical producer, Chris Brown, our announcer. And remember to let your eyes shine, cut back on the wine. Get good food fast and go easy on the greasy. Until next time, I'm Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire, here to help you attain and maintain your perfect health. Let's do it again next week, okay? God bless you.